Before viewing video lessons, it is important to read the textbook using the learning guide as your turn-by-turn directions. Then use the learning guide to take detailed, organized notes in your own words with examples and pictures. This video continues our lesson on stress, health, and coping and incorporates a little bit of the chapter on motivation and emotion. We're going to finish discussing the nature of stress by talking about the 4 major types of stress. Now, these different types of stress aren't really different types of stressful events, but they're actually different types of stressful appraisals, or different ways we might view an event as threatening and that it's something that we don't have the skills or resources to cope with in that particular moment. So we have 4 major types of stress. The first type of stress that you might experience is frustration. And this is what you will experience when you are saying something to yourself about being blocked from achieving a goal. This is the type of stress that people experience most frequently in traffic. So if I'm in traffic and I want to get from point A to point B, and the traffic is moving slowly, or maybe you're in front of me in your car and you're not going as fast as I would like for you to go, then I will be saying things inside my head about this situation, and this will make this a frustration type of stress. So that's the type of stress you feel when you're being blocked from getting to what your goal is. The next type of stress is conflict. And this isn't conflict between 2 people. This is actually conflict within yourself. And this is when you have something called incompatible motivations. And there's 3 different types of incompatible motivations or conflict. The first type is an approach-approach conflict. This is when we're forced to choose between 2 things that we like. So 2 things we'd like to approach, but we can't do them both. We have to choose one or the other. So a good example of this is my daughter will ask after dinner, can we have dessert? And I say yes, and she said, well, what can we have? And I'll give her 2 choices. Well, you can either have cookies or you can have ice cream. Well, what does she really want? C, all of the above. Well, that's not an option, so now she has to choose between the 2. And a lot of times we think that, oh, that's not stressful. You know, you get 2 good things to pick from. Where would the stress be there? It's kind of like people who win the lottery and have to choose between the one-time payout or the payout over time. Oh, please, what kind of stress could that cause? But it turns out that that can create a great deal of stress. And my daughter can spend half an hour agonizing over this choice and wanting to, you know, get all the details she can about each option. Well, what kind of ice cream and how much, and can we have chocolate syrup, and what kind of cookies and how many cookies, and can I smell them first? And she will agonize, knowing that whatever choice she makes, she'll enjoy. The stress comes from having that sort of buyer's remorse, that wish as soon as the last scoop of ice cream has gone into your mouth and the bowl is clean, I should have picked the cookies. Or that moment when the last crumb of cookie goes into your mouth, oh, I should have had the ice cream. So the big stress from approach-approach conflicts comes from not wanting to regret that decision. Avoidance stress is a little bit different, and this is where you have a choice between 2 options that are bad. I don't like either one of these options. It's kind of like deciding, do you want to stay in the frying pan or jump into the fire? I don't want either one of those things, but you're kind of forced to choose. So a good example of this would be my son, for example. I might give him 2 choices. You can either unload the dishwasher or you can clean the floor. Well, if he's being given choices, he would choose C, none of the above, I'll go play PlayStation. But that's not his options. He has to choose between those 2. And again, he will spend more time trying to decide and fret over which of these bad choices than it would take to just do it and get it over with. And so he may say, well, let me see what's in the dishwasher. How hard is this going to be? And then he may say, well, when you say clean the floor, which floors and how much and what kind of cleaning do I have to do? And so again, a lot of stress over something that is both unpleasant, but you have to pick between them. Now, for most of us as adults, we don't get choices and conflicts that are all good, like approach, or all bad, like avoidance. Most adult conflicts are actually approach avoidance conflicts, which is where there's pros and cons to each decision. So, for example, for me, I have to decide, am I going to eat dessert, if at all? And I will probably do some calculations about things like, okay, you know, is this healthy? Is this not healthy? Have I had any other sweets today? Did I exercise? Have I had any vegetables first? Am I going to feel regret if I eat the ice cream if I haven't run today? And it's going to be a much more complicated decision than it is for my daughter. The same things goes for things like cleaning the floor. I hate cleaning the floor, but I like having a clean floor. And so I have to sort of decide what's worse, cleaning the floor or having a dirty floor. And so there's a little bit of a positive and a negative to those kinds of decisions. The third type of stress, or stress appraisal, is change. And this is the type of stress that you can have in response to both good and bad events in your life, pleasant and unpleasant events. But the key here is that the event means that I have to adapt, I have to change. And it turns out that we find change to be stressful. In fact, we've done a study, this was from back in the 60s, where we asked people to rank how much change was associated with a whole host of events. This is called the Social Readjustment Rating Scale. And as you can see, some pretty unpleasant events are up near the top: death, divorce, jail, injury, but then marriage. Unless there's a shotgun at your wedding, usually marriage is viewed as a pleasant event, but it does require adjustment. A little bit further down, I see retirement. Retirement is something that I think a lot of us look forward to. I remember as a kid when I first learned about this thing called retirement, when people would ask me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I would tell them I want to retire. I want to go on permanent vacation. That sounds awesome. But there's a lot of change that is required when you retire. Having a baby, lots of change with that. Even down lower on the list, we see things like going on vacation or having Christmas. While those are generally viewed as sort of pleasant events, they also require some change from our normal routine and adaptation. Sometimes you come back from vacation and you're more stressed than before you left. The last of the four major types of stress is pressure. Now, pressure can come from external sources, but in this particular case, again, we're focusing on your internal pressure. And so what we find is that when you're expected to perform to a certain standard or conform to a certain standard, that can create some conflict for you. You probably are having pressure stress related to being a college student. You probably have a personal standard that you want to meet in your classes, a certain grade you want to get. And you probably also have some sort of external expectations for how you're going to do in school. That may come from your family. It may come from whoever is paying for school, to include if you have like student loans or grants from the government. They have some minimum expectations you have to meet, or they'll pull your loans and make you pay them back. And it can come from even, your friends. So anytime you're in a situation where you feel pressure to perform or conform, that's a form of stress. And so this concludes discussing sort of the nature of stress and the important role that our cognitive appraisals, or the things we say to ourselves about stress, play in creating these stress responses.